All right, Doc. I think we're live. So good to be
Cool.
back.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, we got pulled into the startup vortex there for a little while. So for those who attend these events, if you don't hear from us for a while, it's because we're deep in the bowels of engineering, building cool stuff like we're about to demo for you here, which is the Rupa integration. So Dave Korsunski, founder here at Heads Up, John Lemansky, our chief medical. And today we're going to talk about the Heads Up integration with Rupa Health and what that means for functional practitioners, patients of functional practitioners. So let's dive in. John, first, maybe I think it'd be good to level set on Rupa and
Hmm.
the problem they're solving. And if you've been working in functional or integrative medicine, then you are intimately familiar with the different types of diagnostic tests out there. And there are tests for things like the microbiome. There's tests that look at urine metabolites. There's tests that look at saliva for things like 24-hour cortisol curves. So the challenge in functional medicine, you've got all these companies that make all these different diagnostic tests. You've got Dutch, you've got Genova, you've got Great Plains, you've got ZRT, you've got Doctors Data, you've got Cyrex. They're all independently owned and operated companies.
Yep.
And um, the functional practitioners are typically working with one or more of those. So there's a number of inherent problems there. First is if I want to send a patient a kit or multiple kits, I'm logging into two or three different diagnostic companies' portals,
Hmm.
sending kits to their house. It becomes a lot of different portals to manage just simply for ordering tests. That's the first challenge.
Yeah.
The second challenge is the um, the data comes back in PDF, and there's two problems with that. First, a lot of these diagnostic labs, that some of the ones I mentioned, they don't have patient portals in many cases. So even as the patient who may have submitted multiple tests from one lab company, I can't log into their portal and look at my results. So
Hmm.
that's an issue. And then the second problem for the practitioners is they get these PDF files back, which are great, but it becomes extremely difficult to look at results from test to test. A lot of the functional doctors we talk to, they spend an inordinate amount of time taking data out of PDFs and putting it into spreadsheets
Hmm.
just so they can decipher trends. Massive waste of time for a highly talented practitioner. So Rupa comes along and they've got a brilliant solution. You create one account with Rupa, and I'm going to share my screen here for everybody
Yeah.
so they can
Perfect.
see it. Entire screen. There we go. Let me know if this loads for you, John. Can you
Okay.
see it?
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. Hmm.
Okay, so awesome thing about Rupa, you can see all of these different diagnostic tests, and you basically just create one account with Rupa, and you have a single interface to order and dispatch all of these tests to a patient, and then all of the results flow right back into the Rupa portal. Granted, they're in
Hmm.
PDF, but this makes life a lot easier for the functional practitioners. I can come in here and a few clicks of the mouse send you two or three of the functional tests. They also do the conventional blood testing. So you can order
Hmm.
conventional labs. Those are done through Vibrant America or through Access Medical Labs. So you can come in here and order the traditional lipid panel and CBC and that type of thing. And the phlebotomist
Yeah.
will come to your house and do it. So it's great. You get all the traditional blood tests, you get all the functional blood tests, and it's a single one-stop shop for the ability to order
Hmm.
all these fragmented labs. So that's an overview on Rupa. We've established a partnership with them, and they've had a really successful run so far. So that's Rupa, and we can get into the next steps, which is how this integrates with Heads Up. But John, maybe from your perspective, just your thoughts from a practitioner. perspective on any of the challenges you've run into dealing with just like fragmented diagnostic labs, and then just overall thoughts on Rupa in general before we change gears?
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's kind of something that we've talked about, obviously, is a huge reason why we've been working with Heads Up to kind of address this issue of fragmented healthcare in general. And one of the biggest ones is labs. So, it's very frustrating to try to order, like you said, multiple different, especially the functional medicine labs. It becomes quite a challenge to keep track of all those. And on top of it, if you have just one patient, okay, it's doable. But if you're in any kind of practice that's trying to scale, and you have hundreds to thousands of patients, trying to keep track of the information is nearly impossible. So Rupa, came in and basically did something similar that we've done with healthcare in terms of being a one-stop shop to, access all the labs that you want. What I like about it is they do it in a way where it's very transparent. So you'll see, which company is able to do certain labs. So not all of them are. But I also like that it tells you, how it's going to be done. So, for instance, you can either have somebody come to your house, as a phlebotomist, which I think makes it, much more user friendly, or you can go to, an actual facility and do them there. But it also breaks it down in terms of the cost, so upfront, kind of, okay, this is what it's going to cost. Which for especially the more specialized tests, and if you start adding a lot of those tests in, it can become pricey, and so it gives you at least transparency up front to say, okay, look, these are the tests that I want you to get, or as an individual I want to get, this is going to be the cost. So I think for a lot of practices, that's important to highlight as well, especially if they're like cash pay businesses. A lot of times, you don't take into account the cost of the different labs and testing. Yeah, I mean, so far, my experience with it has been really easy. On the practitioner side, it's very easy. I mean, it's very, very easy in terms of ordering the lab, making sure that they're sent. So I think it's a streamlined setup, which I think more people will start using down the road, just because it makes life so much easier.
Yeah, I did my own experiment when we were building this integration. So you went in, I think you ordered me a vitamin D test, something like that, and it was Access Medical Labs. So called up Access, phlebotomist came to my house. It was done in 30 seconds. Easiest thing I've ever done. On the functional diagnostic side, typically those are tests that the patient's doing on their own. So there's nobody that comes there. It's saliva, urine, stool, hair, whatever. So you just kind of do those on your own, send it all in. So, okay, that's awesome. So we've made an easier way to centralize the ordering of all these tests, and then centralize all the results coming back in one place. Awesome. And then, so how do we take it to the next level of awesome? And the next level of awesome is when we can say, well, let's take all those PDF files that have all this amazingly valuable data in there, send those to Heads Up, and Heads Up can automatically do the data extraction out of the PDF files automatically. Organize that data chronologically, put it on a trend line, and make it really easy for practitioners, A, to see all the results from those tests individually, B, see the changes from test to test. So like if I do 2 Dutch tests, it's all right there. C, you now have that test data contextualized with the rest of the person's health information inside of Heads Up. And then the last part of it is the ability then to start doing analytics on top of the data. And then that type of analytics would be an instance of something where you say, build me a report that automatically flags all patients who have a value on their Dutch test above X, or build me an algorithm that looks at this result from the Dutch test, this result from their functional lab, and tell me if they have this genetic SNP. And if those conditions are true, do this. So that's the next step on the equation. So what I'd like to do is demo the Rupa integration,
Yeah.
so people can see how we actually solve that challenge.
While you're loading that up, just quickly, I think what you just described is really at the epicenter of the future of medicine, where we have so much, we have access to so many different tests, labs, etc. And it becomes something where a lot of times you'll just order stuff just to see if something shows up. But in the scenario that you're describing, it's a lot more, almost like a scalpel, where you're basically saying, I have this problem. These are the tests that I want to see. And then it allows you to really focus your medical decision making, I think, more acutely than just the traditional, like, let's order a whole bunch of labs and see what happens. So, I mean, that what you described, I think, in the near future will be kind of majority of medicine. So it's exciting times for sure.
The other part of it that's come up, John, just from working with so many functional doctors over so many years, is they have been looking at these test results in many cases for decades.
Hmm.
And they know the patterns in their head because
Yep.
they've seen so many of them. So those patterns actually have been developed with decades of clinical expertise.
Hmm.
And it's the ability to very quickly look at several data sets and immediately just go exactly where to look and say, if I
Yep.
see these things, it means that. So now, how do you take that clinical expertise and
Hmm.
then make the software do it automatically? Because now finding a great integrative or functional doctor is super hard. A.
Yeah. Yeah.
B, they're expensive. And C, you need these easy ways to know what to look for. So if I think forward to
Hmm.
the vision, and if these functional doctors can share their algorithms they've developed that they do compute in their head manually, and
Yeah.
now you can build those algorithms into the software. And now you can have anybody do these diagnostic tests. And even if there's
Hmm.
no functional expert there, there's a small percentage that know how to do some of these really hard diagnoses. But now anybody just goes and gets 2 or 3 tests, uploads them into the system. We've got all of these algorithms that have been codified into the software. You can
Yep.
diagnose a lot of things and identify a lot of problems and democratize that and make it available to anybody at a much lower price point without needing to find necessarily the 1 or 2 specific functional docs who know the pattern.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because some of these patterns with some of these complex conditions are hard, but
Yep.
there are people that know it, but there's just not enough of them. So if I put my big picture vision hat on, it's like, hey, John, just go upload an organic acid, a Dutch, and these
Yep.
blood labs, and we can figure it out for you, for example. Great example for you, John, is I interviewed a woman on our podcast. Her name will come to me in a second, but she spoke at the keto conferences. You'll remember the name as I start talking. She was an executive at Microsoft,
Okay.
and she had suicidal bipolar every single day
Hmm.
of her career at Microsoft. And her mental health
Wow.
broke down to a point where they were about to admit her permanently
Hmm.
into a mental health institution. And she told the story on the podcast. Carrie, I believe, is her first name. It's coming back to me
Yeah.
now.
Yep. Yep.
But she told the story on the podcast where right before she was admitted, she had lost her ID. So she didn't even
Hmm.
have a way to identify herself. And you can imagine they just see someone who's severely mental ill with no ID. They just want to put you in a institution. She was able to get a moment of clarity and reason with the medical team to say, give me a week before I get committed, just to get some affairs in order. And if it's not done in a week, you can put me in.
Yeah.
But then she discovered, I don't remember how she got onto this, but she ran her 23andMe data. Maybe she had run it before this incident and the results came back. They identified an MTHFR
Hmm.
mutation.
Yep.
She started taking the proper supplementation, the methylation, the B12, the folate, whatever it
Hmm.
was. That was able to get her out of the red zone. And then I think it was Dr. Ted Naiman connected with her on Twitter and then
Yep.
put her onto a ketogenic protocol. That now got her to a point where she was way out of the red zone and now starting to get to a point of optimal.
Hmm.
And reverse engineered her health. And the story she told on the podcast was every psychiatric drug they have a name for, I'd been on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
None
Yeah.
of it worked. And it's by finding a genetic SNP that tipped me off, and then a supplementation protocol and a nutritional
Hmm.
intervention. So how many people could you screen for that automatically and find
Yep.
the protocol and save them being in a mental institution or incarceration
Or
or
worse,
an
or
unhealthy
self-injuring.
relationship
Yeah.
at work, depression, anxiety? So like,
Hmm.
I'll get off my soapbox here, but just
No,
saying
it's
that like
important though. It's
you
an
can
important
do that at
story.
scale.
Yeah. It's an important story because, I remember, I know exactly who you're talking about. I don't want to say her last name, just, because
It's
she
on the
doesn't know what we're
podcast.
talking.
It's public
Okay.
domain.
Yeah. But I remember the whole audience was, half were in tears, because it was such a powerful story. And I think it also resonates with a lot of people because it's not unique to her. I think I read a recent book by a doctor. I forget his name, but the takeaway was that you cannot have good mental health without good physical health, and vice versa. And
Mm-hmm.
in medicine, we tend to basically segment everything. So if you have a heart issue, you see a heart doctor. But the point of the book was, you cannot have one without the other. It just doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, we just tend to kind of throw medications at it. But if you have something like this, which I'm sure a lot of people do, and it's undiagnosed, that imagine how powerful it is that if you address the root issue, which is the genetic SNP, all the symptoms go away or they're dramatically improved. And you wouldn't be able to see that unless you were, one, looking for it, but also two, had the system set up in a way where you could screen all your patients. So let's say
That's
you're,
exactly
have
right.
a functional medicine practice. The power of the ability to run the reports is that you can run a report on anything. And so if you have like this trend that you start noticing, and it may be something you've never seen before, but all of a sudden now you're seeing the trend, boom, right away, run it on all your patients and see, okay, maybe this is the issue. Maybe it's a genetic issue. Maybe it's a vitamin D deficiency, whatever it is. It allows you, with this integration, to basically streamline your ability to look at things. And that's really the powerful nature of the labs. It's not just doing the labs; it's being able to pick up these kind of esoteric issues that people are dealing with.
Yeah, you can also do it retroactively. Like if you run
Yep.
the labs and
Yep.
5 years from now you discover
Yep.
something, well, oh, go run that retroactively against everybody
Hmm.
and see
Exactly.
who pops up. And now you reach out to someone you treated 5 years ago and say, hey, by the way,
Yep.
we found this new pattern. It
Yep.
actually matches what I saw in your data. And you deliver a life-changing opportunity to someone who's probably been struggling in the system or
Hmm.
maybe has not been able to find the exact solution. That's the capabilities when you program all these things in, and you can do it easily at scale. That's
Yeah.
the potential.
Also interestingly enough, I mean, there's a lot of obviously excitement and concern about AI and its influence on different parts of the economy, but specifically in healthcare, I think it's obviously going to be a huge part going forward. But I think there will be limitations. The benefit of having like a practitioner who has the experience is that there are nuances and things that can be picked up that I don't know if AI will be able to do that. But imagine not only retroactively looking back and saying, okay, we've noticed this pattern, but as you're implementing your protocols for people, they're going to have different responses in terms of how well they do. And you can maybe pick up an idea of, okay, well, this is why this person is not benefiting as much from my keto program or my plant based program. And I think it'll also help practitioners kind of narrow down what may be something that they're missing. That's a key component of why some people are being successful and others are not. And I think so. Not only will the patients get benefit, but the practitioners will also get benefit in terms of their learning curve, which I think will be steepened, pretty quickly.
Yeah, a lot of the reports we do on the data, you would identify that. So if I have 100 people on a ketogenic program, the
Hmm.
report we would show you is the improvement from baseline for
Yep.
all 100 people in the cohort. And you're going to see some people that have a significant improvement from baseline, and you're going to see some where the program just didn't work at
Yep.
all. Same program, identical, two different people, two completely opposite outcomes. So
Exactly.
then you go a level deeper and say, why didn't this program
Hmm.
work? Oh, they have a mutation that does not allow their body to break down fat,
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Something. Yeah.
So um, that's the potential when this data is unlocked. But unlocking it, that's kind of the elephant in the room. You need some guys who are sick in the head who want to
Yeah.
go build some software platform
To
to try to
gather
do
it
this
all.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that'd be Lemansky and I. So let's
Yeah.
take a look at how it works, John, and
Okay.
we can just kind of narrate through this. So here's the demo, right? You log into Rupa,
Hmm.
you order your tests. All right, got my patient here. Want to order a Dutch test?
And just to be clear, so the practitioner has their own account.
Yes, with Rupa.
They go in, add their patients, and then
Yep,
obviously select the labs that they want. Yeah.
yep. So I'm gonna do Dutch for this patient, and I'm gonna order them a vitamin D. Here, and a hemoglobin A1C.
Hmm.
So you get the gist of it. You prepare the order. The kits go directly to the patient. The kits arrive at the patient's home. The patient submits the kits. The lab results come back to Rupa. Once the results come to Rupa, they will automatically sync to Heads Up. So inside your Heads Up account, as a practitioner, all you would do is come in here, and you'll see the new integrations tab. This is only enabled today for select organizations. So if you're a Heads Up customer watching this and you don't see this in your account, just reach out to us. We're still in the beta testing phase. So if you want to be involved in the beta test, we'd love to have you. This will be generally available in the coming weeks, but you can see you've got Rupa here. All you do is click link, you connect your Rupa account, and then what happens is the PDFs from Rupa come to Heads Up. And the best part is then we do the data extraction. So what does that look like? Well, instead of looking at multiple PDF files, you're now looking at beautiful trend lines. So let's just look at an example of that. And let's look at my lipid panel. So I've got my recent results, and they came from Rupa. It's 195. That data automatically shows up on the chart, and it gets normalized
Hmm.
with every other cholesterol test, regardless of where it came from. So now, instead of looking at one or two data points in isolation, first of all, instead of looking at two PDFs, I now have it on a trend line. So that's a big
Yep.
win. We do that automatically. But I've also got history going back to 2005. So I now see my most recent data points with an additional 18 years of
Hmm.
contextualized history for an individual. That's how health data needs to exist in the world, in my
Yep.
humble opinion. It all needs to be on a trend line. Turns out that's really hard. That's where we come in. Now let's look at some of the functional diagnostic data. Let's look at the Dutch test, for example. And so with the Dutch test, again, we extract the results out. We automatically put them on a trend line. We automatically make it easy to trend from test to test. So you've
Yep.
got all the Dutch tests here. You can also look at it in table view, which can be a little helpful if you want to get a look at all the tests at a glance. For practitioners out there, you'll see that the reference ranges, the green, yellow, red, we use the defaults from the lab, but those can also be configured and customized to your own functional ranges. We do that during the setup. That applies to all the labs. So this is what the functional labs look like. Trend line, table view. Then you've got that functional set of testing, Dutch, Genova, Great Plains, but you've got it contextualized with all the other diagnostic lab data. And you may want to look at something like homocysteine level, and you may want to look at a result from the Dutch test together. I'm making up an example. But that's the benefit is now I can look at the results holistically. And then I have all the lifestyle data on the dashboard, the CGM, the aura. So you're now really starting to put the whole picture together. So Heads Up takes the data from PDF, extracts it, visualizes it, trends it. This all gets exactly customized to your practice, reference ranges, what lab results you want to show. It's very, very tailored to the way you want the user experience to work. We do that with you as part of the setup. The PDF files themselves are also here as an FYI. So if you do need to go back and actually look at the PDF file, the source documents are here as well. So you have the source PDF from the lab, but you also have the data extracted for trend analysis. So you get both in here. And then the last part of it is that cohort analysis I mentioned, where you may want to come in here and say, okay, so what are the vitamin D levels for every patient in my practice? And I want it all on one screen. And I want you to flag all of my patients below 50. You know, that's where it gets awesome. We can build these types of queries. All right, I got two patients that are below 50. Here's their result. And here was the date of their most recent test. Get them a vitamin D test, get them some supplementation, retest. You know, so we can build any type of reporting on top of the data we want. So we're excited about this new integration. And just to reiterate, we're still looking for beta sites. So if you're a practice, you use Rupa, you use Heads Up, you want to test with us, we'd love to hear from you. Just contact us, support@headsuphealth.com. For the rest of our customers, there'll be an announcement coming out when this is generally available and included as part of your subscription. So summary thoughts here, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge add for Heads Up and also for Rupa. I think it'll simplify, allow people to integrate their labs and like you said, I mean, run reports, you know, basically streamline healthcare for both practitioners and patients and get a lot of good feedback from that. So I think it's a great integration. Looking forward to more people using it. And yeah, I mean, big fan of it.
Awesome. Well, good to be back with you, John. We'll be rolling here regularly again on Wednesdays. So some of these we'll be doing live product updates, announcements. Other times we'll be just digging into specific topics more at a macro industry level that are relevant. So if you tuned in, thank you. If you got questions, just ping us, support@headsuphealth.com. And thanks, everyone. Have yourself a great day.
Thanks, everybody.